Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, be sure to share, be sure to comment. Say hey. Say hey. Say hey. Say hey. Say hey. Motherfucking jackpot. We still jackpot, bitch.
Hey, welcome everybody. This is XO Joe. Welcome to XO Joe Live. Thank you everybody for being here with me tonight. I have a great show planned with one of my close friends inside the Hexagon community. Somebody that inspires me to be creative every day, and somebody that's actually helped me quite a bit behind the scenes, and really looking forward to tonight because NrdGrl is my guest, and we're going to be discussing how NrdGrl is excommunicated from a religious cult. After we do some discussion about that and different tribalism talk, perhaps we'll get into some pulse chain, and also the sacrifice phase. So thank you everybody for being here. Real quick, just want to say hello to Marcavelli. Thank you for being here. Identity Block, brother, what's up? Your Hexcellence, Hex in Effect, thank you for being here. Nick, good to see you, brother. Thank you. And my friend Hex Live is here as well. Hex Live, thank you for being here. Melv Tony, looking forward to seeing those prices as the stream goes on. Just in regarding that, everybody, I really appreciate the comments and the super chats and everything. You know, the community in the chat room is everything for me when I'm watching a stream. So my streams are a little bit different in the sense it's difficult to pay as much attention to the chat as I would like. Without disregarding what my guest is having to say, right? So I love reading the chat, and I'm going to try to get everything on screen as I can. If there's some periods of time where we don't address it, thank you everybody that's here that's a mod. If you could just help everybody out if they have any questions as things are going on. Without further ado, I'd like to bring on my very special guest. This is NrdGrl007. Welcome.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. So I came onto the Hex scene. When I got here, I only knew a handful of people, right? And it was whoever had a presence on Twitter, right? Who was an active voice in the Hexagon community. And you were different to me than everybody else because you had bigger expectations of the community at large, whereas I was very siloed in my thinking. Didn't really think about who was here before I got here, why people might be maximalists, how potentially I'm a maximalist. The first time I'd ever said that I was a Hex maximalist, it was on a stream with you when I was realizing that I was. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to, as always, learning some things from you. So I'd love to hear, as much detail as you can to go into the story. This is going to be exciting for me. This is about experience, strength, and hope. I love anything to do with, politics, religion, finances, and
all those things you're not supposed to talk about, right?
That's right.
Around the dinner table. I know those are always the things I want to talk about too.
Yeah. So this is great. I really appreciate you joining me. And if you want to, get into the story, I'm looking forward to it as well, and can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. So I guess here's the question of where do you want the story to begin? Because I kind of on the earlier stream that I did with you, several months ago or a year ago or something now, I really told a lot of my story. And since a majority of the community is familiar with me, they at least know, some level of, the story.
I know that like my nephew's watching right now. I think, and so, he's new to the Hexagon community. He certainly knows who you are. And maybe for the people that have heard it before, maybe not as broad of the whole story, but to specifically cover the topic of what your involvement was in the cult, how you got there. Was your family the one that brought you there? And then what was really, I'd love to spend nearly the entire time on that topic. So if you could share some, I want to learn something from this, right? I want to feel some pain perhaps, because in the end, I want to be inspired to realize that there's some pretty wild stuff that all of us go through. And, I've never talked to anyone before that was excommunicated by a cult. So
I feel like I'm going to hugely let you down because you must not have read all of the comments in that. So
were you clickbaiting me?
No, I mean the cult that I was excommunicated from is the cult of Bitcoin.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. So it's just the religious cult. Okay. So I apologize to everybody. I thought it was a religious cult.
No, I mean, it's actually funny because when I was writing that comment, I was thinking of my own, excommunication from the cult of Bitcoin maximalism, but I was also thinking about my friend, like a close friend of mine's story who was a Jehovah's Witness and, ended up leaving because that's who I was really I was thinking of her while I was writing that comment because she had this, amazing story of being born and raised a Jehovah's Witness and then having had a brother who was kicked out because he had a previous relationship with someone who was leadership's wife. And then that brother, her family excommunicated him. So he ended up dying. And then she had another brother who got excommunicated. And then she and her husband and their 2 daughters escaped. And they had this whole story. I was thinking of her. My story is definitely not that dramatic because the cult of Bitcoin it is very much a cult. It very much is a religion in a way that people don't think about it. But it is very similar. So the idea is that when you're excommunicated from a cult, you lose everyone who you love and value and have spent time with. And when you leave the cult of Bitcoin maximalism, it's the same. It's not like you're not just, it's not like your friends are just still going to accept you because you weren't a religion, right? You lose people forever.
It's okay. I think that I'm extremely interested in both, and maybe a lot of the audience is relieved that this will not be totally about religion. So perhaps, this is a crypto focused show. So if that's the arena we're in, I think everyone's going to love that. I do know a little bit of the backstory, but just, briefly, if you want to describe your first entry into the community, how did Bitcoin, what was that like for you? Were you immediately accepted once you became a member of that community? If you could take us through the events that transpired that, essentially got you excommunicated from the Bitcoin. Was it the maximalists? Is that what you were? Were a Bitcoin maxi?
I was never a Bitcoin maximalist, and I made it pretty clear that I wasn't. But my involvement, so I'll just tell you guys, I got involved with crypto in 2016. I was actually interested in the way that I saw tribalism evolving between groups. The first coin that I bought and was interested in and was always my primary holding was Ethereum, but that didn't really matter when I started working in cryptocurrency journalism in 2018, because that was the bear market. And in that last bear market, not saying that it'll be the same this bear market, I actually don't think that it will be, just because of all of the negativity about Bitcoin and just the broad scope of people who would not put their assets back into Bitcoin at this point has changed radically from 2017, where things were a little bit less dramatic or traumatic. But so I got involved with crypto journalism in 2018, and it didn't really matter that I wasn't necessarily a maximalist, because all any publication was writing about was Bitcoin or sometimes the overall market. So it didn't matter, because Bitcoin was the market, it didn't really matter that you were a shit coiner or whatever. It was whatever. And then Also, the only way to get paid was to write stories about Bitcoin. So I was writing about Bitcoin all the time. And so I don't think that people really knew that I was never a maximalist. I was just writing because that's how I was getting paid. So yeah, I was writing for outlets. I was like chasing the story. Actually, I was chasing the like story of the fracture in Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin Cash split from Bitcoin Core, and then when BSV split from Bitcoin Cash. And I was like, you know, going to Canada and wherever, like trying to chase Craig Wright to Canada to interview him.
Craig Wright, you said Craig Wright?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So because that was the story that I was interested in, and I found a way to get paid for that story.
So if anyone doesn't know who Craig Wright was, is because when I first heard the story, I did not know. And if you wouldn't mind just telling everyone briefly who Craig Wright is, and also, you are an incredible writer in this space, perhaps the best writer in this space, and I'm extremely intrigued by your capabilities in writing. And so, not that you, if you wouldn't mind just sharing with everybody why you got into this particular interesting topic of tribalism, as you touch on who Craig Wright is, please.
Sure. Okay. So Craig Wright is the founder of BSV, and he claimed to be Satoshi Nakamoto. So he was an early Bitcoin figure. We know for certain that he was involved very, very early. There are confirmed email correspondence between him and Dave Kleiman, who some people believe is Satoshi or was Satoshi, but is passed on. So he was definitely involved in the space very, very, very early. But he claimed that he was Satoshi, and that was, massively controversial, of course, because Satoshi's a religious figure.
Right. And the reason I was so kind of blown away the first time I heard this is because you walked into the scene essentially and were able to secure an interview with somebody like Craig Wright. And why is that? Is that because you have experience doing this, or luck, a little bit of both?
No. So I was writing for CCN, which stood for Crypto Coins News, and it was a fairly big crypto publication at the time. And there was kind of like a war going on between CCN and BSV because the fork between BSV and Bitcoin Cash had just happened. And as much as everyone hated Bitcoin Cash, everyone hated a third copy of Bitcoin even more. So it was like, I don't know, there's this full scale civil war broke out in Bitcoin, and it was going on. I mean, to some degree, still is right. Going on. But how did I secure an interview with Craig Wright? Oh, okay. Because I was working for CCN, and there was CCN was going after personally attacking Craig's character really, really hard. So I went on CoinGeek, which is the name of the pro BSV website, and just sent a contact form and said hey, I write for CCN, but my real interest is in studying the evolution of crypto tribalism, and my background is in religious studies. I was part of a religious studies PhD program that I dropped out of, several years ago. So even though I work for this kind of rivaling publication, I'm not them. I'm me, and I want the story. And their PR person saw it and responded to me immediately. And, he's like, yeah, let's do it, So I started having this email correspondence with Craig and with the BSV team. And originally my plan wasn't to go interview them in person, but the full-fledged war with CCN and CoinGeek kind of continued to escalate while we were having a conversation. And some of it had to do with something that I planted in Reddit. I don't know. I chase around controversy,
I see that. Yes.
So
somebody has to.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely.
So then Craig said something really negative about CCN while he was at Oxford on a panel discussion. And then it kind of got to the point, and then communication between us like completely ceased. They stopped responding. A couple of weeks went by and they started responding again. And then I was like, at this point, I feel like this conversation needs to be had in person. And you're about to do this conference like in Toronto. So if I get myself up there, can I have a media pass in like 30 minutes? And they said, yeah. So
what I learned from that is, the first time I learned this as well when you told me that. And then again, I'm just thinking about, what we're all doing these days. And I'm relating what you said personally. And it just, it sounds like you were in the right place at the right time. You were prepared, all the sort of cliche things that we hear. But really what it comes down to is you were proactive, and you took an opportunity and you went after something. And that is why you continue to inspire me in this space. The Hexagon community, we all do that. And then there's a handful of you, I want to say, not us, because I look up to the work ethic and the intellect and the ability to complete something just on such a high level. You bring that to this space, and it's I don't know that everybody knows, because we're all learning little pieces at a time about each other. But I first came across Nerd Girl as your writing, right? You wrote an article, and the first time I reached out to you was based on an article you had written that was relating the television show, and it's slipping my mind if you can remember.
The Good Place.
The Good Place. And that was that show, when I saw it, was very synchronicity was happening in my life, right? There was some sort of divine intervention, went on this path, and then I read this article that you wrote that was comparing cryptocurrency to that and what we were all experiencing in the world. And I reached out to you. And so it was another one of those moments, right? That it was just like right place, right time. I'm glad I had really, I had to kind of work up the nerve to write to you, right? Because you're such an incrable writer.
Because I'm like so accessible.
Yeah, I know. It's a me, it's personal. And so I was overwhelmed. You wrote right back, gave me, some great information, told me some other things to look into. And then you were gracious enough to come on one of the first Joe Hexotic Live show. And, just like Richard Hart showing up on my stream, none of us do this for the views, but boy, is it nice when people are watching, and when someone has an audience that they've worked to get, like you have a following of people that are very engaging, it was very kind of you, right? You didn't have to do that.
No, I thought that your theme was awesome, and I wanted to I like that I like the Hexagon streams aren't 100% about talking about the price of a coin, and that there's a real focus on community, and I've always been super supportive of that. So
thank you. When you first came on that show with me and you opened my eyes to all this, I do not like hearing things for the first time that aren't my thoughts, right? It's very difficult. I'm always pushing back. So when I was listening to you and I don't know where the conversation is going to go at the point. And then we get to the point where you labeled essentially cryptocurrency as tribalistic and potentially cult-like, if not cults, right? So that was very difficult for me to accept. I wanted to push back very much, but I didn't know anything to do that. So I was just sat back and listened. And I listened to other people that don't necessarily agree with you 100%. Like maybe Richard has his spin on it, that he doesn't call it tribalism. He has another word for it. Makes it sound.
What is it? Communal?
Is it communal?
No, it's not communal. It's something I've used it since. It starts with a C, definitely.
It's a great word. If anybody knows, if you can type it in there. And it's just a different perspective. But what I was grateful for and still am is that you had the couth, the veracity to come out and say something like that in a culture, knowing that the response was not going to be positive. And you opened my eyes. And so I didn't accept it right away. But over time, I came to find out that what you're saying has a lot of weight to it, if not correct. And the more I learn, it's from other people. So I'd love to, have you kind of take it over again. And if you could just let everyone know, what you went through, what it was like the process of being, excommunicated, what were your feelings like? And then, how did you overcome that? What were some something that provided you strength, right? Because I want to know through your experience, I want to get some strength. I want you to fill me up with some strength, and I want to leave this show with some hope. And if I was right now in the Hexagon community and we were Bitcoin, there was only one, and we were the only group, and then factions started breaking off, and you started to have these issues.
That's inevitably going to happen. And
yeah,
we've already seen it start to happen.
Yeah, it would be heartbreaking in a sense. It would be very difficult to watch. At the same time, its history repeats itself, and so if you just want to take over the floor and bring us through that, because I'd love to end up in a place where we can really, hear your thoughts on, is Hex a cult? I would love to hear, some controversial thinking that might perhaps open up some other people's minds, and myself included.
So I was like doing some more reading and preparing for this today and like writing notes to myself. And then as I was writing the notes, I was like, oh my gosh, so many people are going to get mad at me for what I'm going to say. And then I realized that like that doesn't change that I have to say it, because there's importance in standing by what you believe is true, or not necessarily even believe is true, but so the reason that it's important, whether whether Hex is a cult or Bitcoin is a cult or crypto is a cult, is not because labeling it a cult is important. It's because if you're aware of what's going on, then you can prevent yourself from getting into dangerous situations. So Richard's term is something like communism, or it's not communism. I can't remember what it is. Man, what is it? It's going to drive me nuts.
Someone wrote communal cult Hex Lab, my friend. I don't think it was
that's
that.
Not
no.
what it is.
No.
That's not what it is. I saw it, but that's not what it is. Anyway, so it's important that we just be aware of it, because it's stuff it's not stuff like, are we a cult? Yeah, we're a cult, or we're a little family, we're a little tribe. And it's okay to be a tribe. The difference between just being a tribe and having your group who you identify with, and then being influenced by that group to the point where you have to end friendships or relationships with people who disagree or who are excommunicated, that's when it becomes a problem. So that's why that's why I say that, Hex is a cult. And it's not like Hex specifically of all cryptocurrencies. We all have them,
And now are cults, is it a negative connotation? Because I would imagine, yes, right?
Yeah. So there's negative connotation. Okay. So there's 3 distinct characteristics, according to that sociologists have agreed upon, that make something a cult. So it's just we're going to list them, and then we can examine them individually and talk about, the potential for both Bitcoin and Hex and any other cryptocurrencies we want to get into being a cult. Okay. The first one is a group or movement with a strong, authoritarian, and charismatic leader.
Check.
Okay. So, also sociologists have also agreed that in this, I don't know, what's it called? In this new digital age, that chat groups can actually take the place of having a strong central authoritarian, leader, because there have been cults that have actually even created mass events, mass casualties that didn't have central leadership, but were heavily influenced by the incels who ran the cult. So, examining whether Bitcoin could be a cult by traditional definition of having strong central leadership, that would be a negative. But because we've got the mythic figure of Satoshi Nakamoto, we also have, central figures like Adam Back, who's the CEO of Blockstream, who could be thought of as that strong central leadership point, and other heavy, crypto Bitcoin only influencer people. And then also that chat group. So that's an important note, that cults have evolved.
Okay. And so for me, maybe the reason I'm attracted to Hex is I like the underdog. I like being told that you're wrong when I know I'm right.
Collectivism. There it is.
Collectivism. Thank you.
That's the word
that was
used instead. Yes. Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Yeah. So actually, that's a really important part of, of the establishment of a cult or a collective is an enemy. And that enemy may be imagined or not. Like it may be that, the strong central leadership who envisioned the collective created an enemy to strengthen and unite the people who were going to be part of the group. And I'm not saying that that's the case. And also just like, so that everyone knows, like, I'm in your cult, like there's no question about that at this point. Also, I like Richard. He's my favorite crypto leader. He's, reasonable and smart and just generally I like him. So I don't want anybody to feel like I'm attacking Hexagons, Hex, Richard, anyone. This is just like, I'm a sociologist.
And what we're doing here is we're having a real discussion that some people might be afraid to have online, but we do all have them behind closed doors. We're bringing them out, and we're not doing it to create FUD. And just like Nerd Girl just said, we're Hexicans, right? We're as Hexican as it gets. We're having this discussion.
I mean, I have a tattoo on my wrist forever. Like there's no question about my tribal affiliation with this group.
And so I know we should tread lightly. It's delicate, right? Area. At the same time, this is so intriguing to me, and I love having a really deep discussion about this. So, I think it's great that we preface it with that. And if anyone has any questions afterwards, but we are, about to dissect this, and controlled opposition is a part of that. I'd love to hear what else. What are the other?
Okay, so the second necessary characteristic for something to be a cult is a form of indoctrination program, also known as thought reform and sometimes called mind control. So it's, a way of like re-educating the people who become members of the collective. And so the question is, just off the top of your head, does that exist in Hex?
It does. I can see how all three criteria are satisfied. Certainly
We've only
with Hex.
gone over 2.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Seems like a lot already. So
no, I mean, but here's the thing: is like, yes, there are negative connotations with the term cult. I'm not using it in a negative way. I'm using it in a sociologist way.
Oh, okay. So to clarify then for me, so there is a possibility of using the word cult and not having there be a negative connotation if you understand what each other are. How I'm prefacing it. It's not necessarily negative.
If you're speaking among academics. So, okay, I come from a religious studies background. I, have degree in religious studies. I was in a religious studies PhD program. Religious studies is more or less the sociological study of human behavior in religion.
Okay.
So it's not a theology degree. I mean, although I do have a heavy history in studying the theologies of several religions, just like as a byproduct of having to understand or needing to understand why people think the way that they do in groups. So a really like standard sociological way of thinking is like religion plus time. Cult plus time equals religion. So like, Judaism was called a cult. Scientology called a cult. Christianity was called a cult. Like it doesn't necessarily mean a group that's going to self-suicide or, a group that's going to necessarily be destructive. It's just that that's kind of the common perception of them, because when we hear about cults in the media, we're hearing about things like Jonestown and,
So can I ask a question I'm a little afraid to ask then? Is there any history, is there any cult in the world that I'd be familiar with that the world would agree was a positive one? Has made a positive impact? Or is
Christianity? I mean, like not everyone in the world would agree with that, but there's billions of people worldwide who would agree that there's been a positive impact of Christianity. Islam is another thing that has been called a cult that people would, many people would agree has had a positive impact and certainly has had a positive impact on the lives of many people, whether you believe it's true or its overall impact has been destructive or not. There are a lot of things that are cults that aren't necessarily that level that we think of, like, I don't know, the trigger word cult.
I get empowered by it these days. Like, I would love to wear on my collar, on my sleeve, that we are a cult. I'm a cult Hex Maxi, right? Like, because I love it so much. At the same time, I'm less siloed in my thinking. We have Pulse Chain coming, right? There's going to be a whole new world for someone like me that just entered crypto not too long ago. It's about interoperability and providing value. There's going to be different coins that do different things. Hex is the first mover in the space, and by far the best only completed product that I'm aware of. I hear other things, like I was having the discussion today with one of my friends. I won't throw him under the bus, but in case he's right, he was saying Uniswap fits that criteria.
Yeah,
it does
and
not.
then if it didn't, then they wouldn't have to do like Uni V2 and Uni
Exactly.
V3. Yeah.
Yep. So we have a very special product in a space of continuous projects. Once you understand the math, right? Once you maybe I'm floored by Richard, right? He excites me. I like hearing him talk. Very influential in my life, very beneficial also in a positive way. My mental health, my spirituality, my physical health are all better than before I came into Hex, before I met Richard. So I'm intrigued by the negative connotation. I like to flip it on its head and own it. We are a cult. At the same time, when my neighbor was here just now in my house, I told him I have to go do a show. We're doing a show about, being excommunicated from a cult. And his face was like, I got all I needed from his response that, okay, maybe this isn't something we want to go around saying, like we want to wear it like a badge of honor. Maybe the negative connotation is so large.
Well, so here's the thing, is that not acknowledging it and not being aware of it are really super damaging. So when I have, experienced like this thing where I try to get people in my life, not try to, but when people in my life express interest in purchasing cryptocurrencies, and then I've sort of said like, okay, here's what I like, or here's what I think, here's where I think your safe bets are. And then I never try to tell people just one thing, because I'm afraid that if I tell them just one thing and then that thing performs badly in the immediate term, that's going to have a ricocheting effect, not just on their financial situation, but also on my relationship with them. And then also that it's, it looks weird. Like, why would you tell someone who's just about to get into cryptocurrency that there's one, I'm like, here's some things that I think have potential, and here's why. And then Hex being the most controversial among them, especially, a year ago or 6 months ago. And then having those people independently look into things and come back to me and say, hey, yeah, I mean, cool, it could be a good investment, but it really seems like a cult. So being aware of and owning the fact that we appear to the outside world to be a cult is pretty important. Self-awareness makes it more okay.
I'd love to come back to a question I have in a few minutes regarding what exactly we're doing in this space as streamers, as on Twitter, on YouTube, how we're active in the community. I have a question specific to that, but NrdGrl, if you wouldn't mind, can you respond to Hex Conductor? And do you think that it's like a family is a cult, in the sense that
well, okay, so here's the thing. Does a family, if a member of the family leaves, right, or someone in your family gets mad at a member of your family and then they decide not to live in your hometown or whatever anymore, does someone in your family say, hey, we're all not going to not be friends with this person anymore? And
so
there's potentially, yeah, that happens. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, yeah, in some ways there's varying degrees that, that cult could be used to apply to anyone, to groups as small as families, but generally speaking, it's a group that has extreme beliefs and fanatic followers.
Okay. So to get back to the question, thank you. I am seeing two things happen right now. I'm seeing a group of men and women that I very much respect, who are fed up with crypto influencers who are active in holding their feet to the flame, right? You made a mistake a year ago. You fudded our bags. We're going to bring it back, and we're going to show you why we are upset, right? And I like that. The other part of me, the other half of me, sees a group of people who are reaching out, who are building bridges, who are actively creating something that seems bigger than where we are. And so I'm intrigued by both perspectives. You're from the perspective, obviously, of building bridges. That's the name of the show that you do on Saturdays on Discourse Syndicate at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Wednesdays. At what time?
7 p.m. Pacific.
7 p.m. Pacific. So that's right. Taking over for the 10 o'clock slot on Wednesdays. So you're obviously from the faction of building bridges, of thinking bigger, perhaps. And I like both perspectives. So please don't get this wrong. If you were the guest from the other group of people, I would be asking you the same question from this angle. So my question is, how do you go through this where you see Hexicans angry about people? I don't think we need to throw out any names unless you think we do, but about some people that perhaps hurt the Hexican space and now maybe would like another chance. And maybe Hexicans are reluctant because, especially like a few of my really good friends, my close friends who are streamers in the space, very successful streamers, very intelligent. And what I'm seeing from them, and I'm starting to wonder if they are right. Maybe the truth lies exactly in the middle, but I wonder what you think about our whole space being so different, right? Everyone works for free. We love it. It is perhaps fits the definition of a cult, but what we do here is the inspiration for the community at large, the crypto community at large, to copy, right? Everybody wants what the Hexicans do. You go on Twitter and there's an army. You know, there's media creation, everything. So I'd love to hear your perspective on why do we give influencers another opportunity now that Hex has proven after a year and a half that it is an exceptional product, and maybe now they're going to start to come around, and do we let them back in given that they have perhaps financial motives and they weren't here when it was, we went through the toughest parts.
So here's the thing is, like, I don't think that I really let people off the hook. Like, I want to build bridges and establish relationships with influencers and groups who have been negative towards Hex initially, to give them a chance to say, like, hey, I messed up and I've changed my mind, or to give them a chance to explain what was going on, because everyone at some point in time has been subject to media manipulation, which is really what happened with Hex. So, like, Hex got a bad rap early on because there was some manipulation in the media about it being a scam. Someone took some elements of truth and then hyperinflated the shit out of them in media to fund the project, either to drive it into oblivion or to hold the price down so that they could accumulate more for a longer period of time. And we don't know which one, or, potentially, and I'm not saying that this happened, but it's also possible that that was intentional and by design to create a very strong, fanatic, tight-knit community. So I don't know which one of those things happened. I don't want to speculate on that, but all of those possibilities are there. Okay.
Yep.
So everyone in the world today who has ever consumed any kind of media, whether it was social media or television or any form of propaganda or, any form of mind control, has been influenced to believe something that was not true. Everyone watching this stream has at some point internalized something that they believed to be true because some exterior force put it on them, right? And then they believed it, and then they were wrong. And so, like, how can we really, really hold against people that they were subject to mass manipulation? So
I want to just throw out the example of money, of when we all grew up and what we thought about money, what we thought the Federal Reserve was, and then how mind-blowing that was to find out everything that we've all found out about that. So we were all brainwashed, manipulated. I'm sure we've all even had arguments, full-blown arguments with people, and we're wrong because of that being brainwashed. So I just wanted to throw that point out there. I think we can all relate to that. We've all gone through that. That's why we're here. And so I guess if you look at the law of numbers, controlled opposition, a real enemy, bad actors, you're going to have the whole conglomerate of everything is going to happen. As a Christian, right? As someone who is a Christian, believe in God, I believe in Jesus in particular is my Lord and Savior, right? I try not to throw it down other people's mouths all the time, but in regard to this discussion, it's relevant. In the Bible, it says to forgive your brother 77 times, right? And there's a 3-part process to forgiving your brother. At first, you talk to your brother one-on-one and you let them know what's wrong and how they hurt you, and you go from there. If the things don't change, then you ask another person to come in, maybe a small group of people, so that you have this discussion as a small community. If things don't change again and things are still bad, then the final step in the Bible is to invite the church in to essentially remedy the issue. So to keep on track with what we're talking about, essentially there's a couple guys, and we don't need to name names certainly for this, but I know of 2 people in particular that were here that drove the price down. The guy that actually did it, and then someone recently who's trying to take credit for it, in my opinion, right? And I'm sure he was a large part of it. That person makes me so angry, and I'm not always, gentle and patient. I have to work on that, right? That's not who I am. That's a work in progress. So I get triggered when I see some clickbait from somebody who I think fudded the community, hurt the community, and now is like back attempting to be with us again. And as a Christian, I want to accept him back. As a human being who's flawed, it's very difficult, and I just was curious if you could share your thoughts and how you feel about when this happens and how you accept someone back in or not.
So I think really specifically that the person who you're speaking about right now is GT. And I don't think that anybody has to accept him back into their community, but those who want to shouldn't be forced not to, right? I was never mad at him, honestly. Everyone said that, we should be and whatever, but I was like, guys, we're staked. Who cares? Who cares?
I almost text you to tell you that somebody retweeted your text because I thought it was so bad that I wanted you to know that, but I didn't. You know what I mean? And now to hear
someone retweeted my.
I'm sorry, your tweet. Someone retweeted your tweet, and so I was like, oh my God, he's using you to make it seem like. But you were interacting with. I guess we could just say it. It's GT, right? So
part of the community before he was excommunicated, and in fact,
and you were there
on stream during his excommunication. So my relationship with him is very different.
Absolutely. So it's a lost episode of Discourse Syndicate. Very controversial, right? At a time when we were at our height for FUD, I would be reluctant to say this, but one of the most entertaining couple hours that I've had in crypto is watching that episode. I don't remember the gentleman's name that you were with, but there was good texture, great texture. What's his name?
Good texture.
GT. And then Richard came on. So if it's the Discourse Syndicate that they don't want you to see, I'd like everybody to see it, right? It's our history. NrdGrl was there. It was a moment in time, right? And this person, I wish I could have been here to watch it all happen, because then I wouldn't be subjective. I could just be objective. Perhaps I could say this is how he came in, this is how he left, but I came in afterwards. So I'm intrigued by someone like yourself, Nicole, who was there, and that, if you could, you want to talk a little bit about that, about how it happened? I mean,
so that's kind of why we're having this discussion, because that's what caused me to post, sorry for being sensitive about being excommunicated from a cult. It's just that I've experienced that. So I've experienced losing every single one of my friends, or not everyone, but a majority of my friends, and certainly public support from all of my friends, at least initially, because I had a different opinion, or because I was speaking about something differently. And so, I mean, I don't know, like, I'm not suggesting that everyone should open their hearts and minds and start following him and loving him and like welcome him full back into this community. I don't think that he even wants that. I'm just saying that, like, you don't have to hate him. There's no, why.
Yeah, part of me could be friends with the guy. I mean, I like the guy, but then I get into that where I see his angle, and it's
okay. So sorry, there's a lot of people being like really hostile about the possibility that we're about the fact that we're using the term cult to potentially refer to Hex, and that's like actually a huge characteristic of it is disbelief that you could be part of something that has negative connotations, like something like Jonestown. But as I've just explained, like, we're talking about media manipulation and manipulation of terms, and that all goes into like the social construction. Like, you can get upset about me calling it a cult or about someone calling it a cult, but that doesn't change the fact that not me specifically, but like other people on the outside are observing it as a cult and calling it that without me doing so. So us being totally unaware of it and just like getting angry and yelling whenever someone uses that word is not effective.
right. It's the reason we have Discourse, right? We are on Discourse Syndicate. That is the purpose of RG's conglomerate that he has made, right? We are here. I'm here to have real discussions, right? And I know you are too. And so I think maybe anybody that said that, I would hope that you missed the 20 minutes of us prefacing everything exactly like Nerd Girl just said. We understand this is controversial. At the same time, some of the things that Richard first said to me, they broke my heart because I had to actually look in the mirror, right? I had to actually find out that I wasn't who I thought I was. And wow, I can get a lot better here. I can learn. I can become more intelligent. And I have. And I am looking forward to, in this same context, learning from this. And, so it just if you want to pick it back up, Nicole, just I cut you off in the middle of talking about GT and what he experienced, and you were there. So to watch someone leave.
So like I had a friendship with him that wasn't based on Hex. It was just based on us being friends, So like it was painful for me to see him be excommunicated from everyone. And like, he unfollowed everyone and essentially everyone unfollowed him. And I never did. Like, I was like, I don't care because like we're talking about what we're choosing, what I'm going to choose and what you're going to choose to invest your money in, right? Not about anything else. So like, that nothing changed except for that he decided to dump on the market. And yes, that dumped the price of Hex. And yes, we all paid that price for several months.
To play devil's advocate.
They were his coins to sell. That's the thing, is like, when it's your money, it's yours to do with what you want.
I was thinking about this today. I got in at a great price because perhaps of that dump, right? So I don't know what I would have done regardless, but I remember the first time I looked at the chart and I saw how the chart went crazy up high and then dropped down crazy low. And that's right where we were. And I was like, wow, if we could just get back to that, I'd be grateful for the rest of my life. So I had bought in anyways, but then I was like, here's my buying opportunity. So I'd like to give a shout out to GT for driving the price down. And I'm sorry for everyone that went through that. I can imagine how emotional it was, but I'm sure I'm not the only Hexican who has benefited greatly from that. So just a devil's advocate perspective there.
Okay, so let's get into what the third characteristic of a cult is, because we're like an hour in. We're like almost an hour in now, and I haven't even given you the third characteristic of a cult yet, right? And the third characteristic is exploitation of its members. And that can be financial, sexual, political, whatever. And in that way, I would say like Hex is not exploitative of members, right? Because like all it's really done is enhance people's wealth, except for, of course, people who bought the 10-cent top, but they're not down very much and it hasn't been very long. Right. So the reason that it's important to be cognizant of the fact that Hex does have some other characteristics of a cult is that it's very typical of cults to not have this third element until later on, right? So like Bitcoin, if we look at Bitcoin and say Bitcoin is a cult, so all Bitcoin hold, Bitcoin only goes up, right? Until the miners all dump it, until the whales all dump it. And then there is exploitation. It's also a common characteristic for cults to have something that seems like it's not an element of the cult to like be a force that brings people in. So we have to be aware of other things that are going to like branch off of Hex at some point, or maybe are already tied to Hex, because, Hex could be an arm for bringing us into something bigger and more sinister potentially. And I'm not saying, again, I am not saying that it is. I'm saying that cognizance of these things can help protect you in the event that something does go bad moving forward. There's nothing wrong with being aware.
Absolutely. And you can imagine the opportunity that exists right now for bad actors, right? They see what's exploding in our space. So everyone just, take everything with a grain of salt, watch people for a long time before you buy into their stuff, right? And we have an amazing community, and I'm not sure what the future holds, but I can imagine someday somebody showing up and saying, we're going to do this, and the part breaks off. And I believe that's what you're talking about, right? Is that it could be happening already, right?
Okay. So let's talk about like Scientology, and let's say, I don't care if you are a Scientologist, right? Like because we're talking about Hex as though it's a cult. So we're going to use that word without the negative connotation, and just in the sociological function of its use. Okay. So Scientology has an arm called Narconon. And Narconon is a program that helps people get sober from drugs and alcohol, and is not like publicly tied to the Church of Scientology in any way. And it's a way that they bring new members in.
Wow, I didn't know that. And I'm very well versed in 12-step programs, and I didn't know that.
Okay, yeah.
Wow. It was always my fear for the 12-step program that I'm involved with, that when I first went there, I felt like they used God in overwhelming amount, and maybe the whole room would look at me and talk to me. But that was just because I was inexperienced. And then after going a lot, I realized that, they cared, and that's why they were looking at me, and that God had helped them, and they were just sharing what they had experienced. So I'm very surprised to hear, though, that Narconon is related to Scientology. That's very surprising.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And in fact, there's even like an anti-cult awareness group that's tied to another cult. Like every cult has some element of it that's like not publicly known to be tied to the known cult. So like just generally being aware of the possibility that there may be exploitation in the future, and prepared for dealing with it in case, like, that's the only reason that I mention this, and also just as a sociologist, and also all of you getting upset is like just proving my point. So another like really common characteristic, and this isn't like one of the 3 necessary characteristics, are that members are traditionally at a crossroads in their life. And it could be like a crossroads of any kind, right? Like it could be, and that's why a lot of these groups that are not tied to cults are related to, getting help from addiction, or getting help from getting financial help because they're under financial duress. I know a lot of people who have become Christians or become Muslims because the church helped them get off their feet, when they were homeless, or when they, and like, just, those are real things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the fact that a lot of this community was drawn to Richard because of his help with, because of his work as a self-help author is also.
Yeah, and just to reiterate and maybe piss off some more people, like I said, I am a Christian, and so I wanted to preface that question before to Nerd Girl about, was there any successful cults, right? Anything that doesn't have a negative connotation, that perhaps Christianity to you is negative. Unfortunately for you, from my perspective, it's everything to me, right? So I'm extremely interested in this topic because my man, right, like the guy upstairs was treated just like Richard, right? I'm not comparing Richard to Jesus. Richard is not Jesus, but Richard could be looked at like a messiah. And I did a show with Crypto Vince on Christmas in which we dissected the relationships between Christianity and cryptocurrency and Hex in particular. And the fact remains that Jesus and Richard have gone through a very similar thing. If you believe in Jesus, if you just believe the worldly story that happened and nothing, fantastic, right? Jesus was stoned and killed, right? Put on a cross because of his trying to change the world and help everybody. Richard is doing something very similar, and he's getting a lot of that same feedback.
Yeah.
So I think this is an important discussion because our purpose here is certainly not to FUD. It's to provide strength to our arguments so that when we do hear this in a cult-like fashion, we can know how to respond, right? So
the reason that to me it's important to be aware of these characteristics is that I never want to become financially dependent upon something that could potentially become exploitative. So I'm not saying that Hex is exploitative, and in no way has anything ever negative ever happened to me because of my investments in Hex or because of my investments in the Hex community, right? Like I've got nothing but praise. But being aware that there's the potential for that to happen at some future point and wanting to make sure that I'm not completely desolate, like should the OA suddenly decide to act maliciously is important to me. And maybe it's not important to you. Maybe you want to put 100% of your faith into Hex because you believe in it. Then that's fine. I don't care what you do with your money. But like for me, I'm always going to have enough money so that, if the cult starts telling me that I have to do something that I don't want to do, I can say, fuck you.
Absolutely. I wish I could say the same. I'm opening up my mind with other things. I'm 100% vested in Hex, right? Like it is what it is. I do see some potential in other coins and other chains, but it's like, why would I hold them when what's happening is happening right now? If something terrible were to happen, then it helps to be diversified. It's a touchy topic.
Even if that diversification is in dollars or in, something outside of cryptocurrency. Like, I'm not saying that you have to be holding, another crypto because like I'm not an investment professional and I don't give financial advice, but
I think we're getting a lot of sorry, Nicole, go ahead.
Having something else so that if something happens, you're not just completely completely dependent upon the group or the asset is important.
Absolutely. What I like to see right now is like the community building businesses, right? Working together, forming partnerships, and things are related to Hex, things are related to crypto, but they're also outside the realm of crypto. For example, the community has been very supportive with me in particular to help me get going with designing logos. My way to contribute back is to provide a discount, right? If you keep Pulse colors, Hex colors, right? And this is providing me an income. It's allowing me to work on my skill set. And
right.
it's happening because of this system that we're in, right? This potential cult-like faction.
Yeah.
And
So even taking the money and investing in some kind of business that you run that has nothing to do with cryptocurrency is like, those are all good to me. Like those are all,
right. And
I mean, and I will say that it doesn't seem like Hex is exploitative because it hasn't exploited yet. But like I said, being aware of the presence of those other two characteristics is important to me.
Would you say all three of them again, please?
Strong, authoritative central leadership.
Okay.
Or charismatic central leader. The second one is some form of indoctrination program, sometimes known as mind control or re-education. And the third one is exploitation of members, whether it's sexual, financial, political, or any other kind of exploitation that you can think of.
Okay, so it seems like we satisfied the first two criteria, but I was wrong before. It does not seem like we satisfy the third. And so this is like you said, sort of just to build knowledge, right? And look out for things. It doesn't necessarily mean that anything that we're talking about today, right, that hex could be that result. But this is all great to talk about because in life people fall into these
So
traps.
The reason that some people might say that it does satisfy that third criteria is that you do have to, you do buy hex, so you do put capital into it. It does require something from you. And then for most people, you stake it, so you lock it up for a certain period of time, So that's why some people might argue that it does satisfy the third criteria. But so far, that has not negatively impacted anyone who's done it. So it doesn't. But like the possibility exists.
And I believe someone as smart as Richard perhaps is aware of all these things, right? Like he could not be.
Absolutely.
So I've heard your discussion with him before, one-on-one when you were with him. I had previously talked to you, so to watch that stream was really cool for me, to have, the man himself give his perspective on this, right? Like you bring a very challenging argument, and it's got levels to it. And so to hear his response, like we forgot the word, even again, what is it?
Collectivism.
So to hear like things like that, like I'm expanding my mind, and it's great. So what, where do we go from here? So how do you see the ecosystem now as it is, with it changing? What can we do in the future? Or to me, the first one, the central leadership with being charismatic.
What about all other cryptos, Nicole? I never said that all other cryptos aren't cults. In fact, I've said that several cryptos, if not all cryptos, fit these criteria.
Absolutely. So I'm sorry, I forgot what I was going to say. You have any idea what I was getting at?
Yeah. Where do I see us going?
Yes,
where do I? So we've talked about, how to approach, how to deal with and approach, influencers. And then we specifically talked about an influencer who's kind of thought of as a heretic, right? Like he's been excommunicated from the Hex cult. Okay. Like just Hex Collective. All right.
Yeah. And I feel like I want to be the warrior at the gate that doesn't allow him back in. At the same time.
Here's the thing. You can be the warrior at the gate that doesn't allow him back in to your life. But why would you dictate whether other people can or should have a friendship or a relationship with him? Like I said, he and I are friends, and that exists outside of Hex. Like I've never stopped. If he sends me a message, I respond,
Yeah, it's like I don't know the answer to your question. It does something emotionally to me that I know is wrong. Like my response is animalistic, right? It's not higher level thinking. It's go time, right? And like, this is Twitter. He's writing a message on Twitter. Am I really that upset? Like, no. So at first I type out a paragraph. I'm going to respond to him. And then I'm like, I'm not even going to waste my time. And I go about my day. I'm conflicted because, like I said, I like some of these guys. He's not the only person. There's other charismatic people that have perhaps made mistakes, and they are attempting to come back in our community. There's men and women that I look up to who are not open to that. And then there's men and women who very much are.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm trying to hear everybody's perspective.
The same was true with someone who I had on my stream, Crypto Black Sheep. There were a lot of people who were really upset by the fact that I was even having a conversation with him. So Crypto Black Sheep was excommunicated from, the Hex Collective before I came in. So I didn't really know anything about him or his story. I met him in Las Vegas. But so like, here's the thing. I'm not asking anyone to change their feelings. And I don't think that anybody should ask that of anybody else. I mean, I think that that's the point where exploitation does come into play, where like you are requiring groupthink. So what about all of the Bitcoiners who I used to be good friends with who won't speak to me anymore, not necessarily because they think that I'm an asshole or that I'm a heretic or that I should have been excommunicated, but because someone else who they are afraid of being isolated from thinks that. Like, it does like we're essentially repeating history.
Yeah, Wales has a great point. People need to learn to be discerning from the start. This world today is totally about discernment. That's why I'm interested in talking right now about this subject, because I know in my heart what's right. What's right is to let everybody back in, right? But there's going to be somebody that comes back in that just walks all over you again.
No, but
right?
here's the thing. Just like letting someone back in doesn't mean letting them back into your circle of trust.
Okay. What does it mean?
I mean, not publicly bashing them, probably.
Taking the high road, inclusion, not exclusion, no reason to cause a problem.
I mean, you mentioned like I do things differently. Like I build bridges, right? Instead of burning them. And yeah. I mean, so like where I would say like, yeah, I do. I like have conversations with influencers who have said negative things about Hex, and then we build a bridge at the end of the show. And I maintain friendships and relationships with people regardless of their views about the asset that I've invested in. And I do that because this isn't a religion, it's an investment, because what they put their money into is irrelevant. Like what's in your wallet is irrelevant to me. The only reason that it's relevant to me is because I want my money to go up. So like it's selfish of me to not have a friendship with someone because they dislike an asset that I hold. Like, and then because, there's this third really important point, and I feel like, I don't really feel like I just let people off the hook, right? Like I like tell people, you did this, you said this upset the community. I do hold people accountable for the things that I'm aware that they've done. So, I mean, like we have those conversations.
Yeah, and I think it's great to hear everyone's perspective too, because I don't think anyone has the whole truth themselves. So it's really cool to hear opposing views and then figure it out ourselves with that discernment, like you're saying. I'm curious. I don't want to cause an issue, but I would love to see GT on with somebody, RG with you, with somebody, right? And like have them like grill him, because not only would that be entertaining, right? Like it's entertainment, right? Like I'm watching streams at home sometimes because I want to get away from things. And then I get totally connected. Now this is my family. I'm here because I love it. But there's been other times like I just want to escape, and this was entertainment, and that's like complete package entertainment, And at the same time, I'm reluctant to say that out loud because I don't want to be the person that asked to invite a pariah back in if they're going to do the same thing. But you never know unless you give the person another chance, right? And I wouldn't be here today if I didn't get chance after chance after chance given to me, right? And so, like, if I can be here, then anybody can be here, right? Like, I was the most selfish, most egotistical person. It was just at a different point in my life. No one can beat me at that. And now here I am, and I'm changed. I'm different, and this community has helped with that. So I'm always, open to taking the high road. It's just I'm not really the person that can lead that initiative usually.
Someone says, let's just see RH grilling GT live on DS. Yeah, that would be amazing. Of course, that would be hilarious. But I don't think that Richard has time for that right now. So Wales said that I need to address the fact that a lot of people have been negative about the whole Hex community and not just Hex as an asset. They have been, but the Hex community is sometimes something to like, some people have really negative experiences with the Hex community, I mean, like, because the community has been under attack for over a year, we're defensive and sometimes angry and sometimes hostile to people who may have come from a place of curiosity with questions and been assumed to be like, bad actors. And then as a result, their experience with the community has been negative. So yeah, like there's people who are just being assholes, but honestly, like we've got assholes too, Yeah. And in terms of like GT on DS, I mean, it seems like that's just like a trigger button issue that like people are just not cool with, and I'm fine with that. Like you guys don't, as a whole, like it doesn't feel right. Maybe like not enough time has gone by, or maybe never enough time will have gone by. That's fine. But I want everyone to I want to encourage people as we move forward, more of these instances are going to happen. You're going to be surprised. There are people who you're friends with today who are going to become heretics, who are going to be excommunicated. And whether you decide and your decision to never speak to them again or to stop your friendships with them shouldn't be dictated by what the majority thinks. So like, it's up to you. It's your choice. And the reason that matters to me is because I've been excommunicated from a cult and lost all of my friends, and it was really sad, and I miss them.
I don't mean to laugh. I apologize. I didn't expect you to say that at the end, following that. If everybody, my perspective on this is if people like to see Richard and the Lawyers, Richard and Tone Vase, Richard and Pino McCormick, right? Like you, RG, GT, that to me is something I want to watch, right? It's entertainment value, but on top of that, it's like nobody's going to be afraid to really say what they think. And if you have opposing views, it doesn't matter. You guys would still tell each other. And that's what I like to see. So when I watched that interview back then with GT and RH, I was like, wow, he's intelligent, and he went hard at Richard. And Richard that was the most opposition I had ever seen to Richard Hart was GT. I got to give the man that. Right, he's gone up against some intelligent people. That was the only time it was a little weird. I didn't know where the future held. Right now, 6, 7, 8, 9 months have gone by. I am not sure how Ampleforth is doing these days, but I don't think it's very good. Right, I don't think it blew up the way that GT thought. I'm pretty sure it's wrecked.
Yeah, but so here's the deal: you make your own financial decisions. He probably thought that Ampleforth was going to blow up. So, I mean, like, yeah, he wrecked plebs, or did plebs wreck themselves? I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm pretty sure that, like, I make my own financial decisions. I'm responsible for what I do with my money, and Joe's not. So Joe tells me not to buy something or to buy something, and whether I listen or not is my decision, my responsibility.
And so what do we do as a community that's in different factions potentially right now when someone like GT, who I am conflicted, and I know that from a Christian perspective, the right thing to do is accept him back. And then I know from my gut that I don't want to.
I know that you should probably give it some more time.
And then people like Wales, very adamant because he puts himself out there, does a lot of streaming, has been extremely successful, not only for him personally, but with Matty Allen, and in onboarding a tremendous amount of people, growing our community, exciting a lot of us. So when someone like Wales expresses his opinion, it has influence on me, right? Just like what we're talking about. So I am heavily intrigued by someone like Wales when they are so opposed. So what's going to happen
when someday Wales tells you that you should excommunicate me? You just going to do it? Or are you going to like make up your own mind and say that you have your own individual relationship with me and,
100% I would have discernment, right? And that would be extremely conflicting. Thank God I have a great relationship with both of you and I'd be able to just talk to you. So I hear what you're saying. You have a great point. Are you going to
excommunicate me, Wales? I don't think so. But what I'm saying, I'm just using myself as an example. Like, it's possible,
Yeah, for sure. So I don't think that there's necessarily a right answer, right? I don't think you can make everyone happy. In fact, I know you can't make everyone happy. And I'm intrigued by people that are doing things a little different. And so like yourself, you put yourself out there, you go up against some controversy. Same with Richard, right? Like that's good for our community. Somebody like you who builds bridges, who's not afraid to have these discussions, that's what you bring to Hex. There's not other people doing that. Maybe we're starting to, maybe people here and there are, but you've been doing that. I have experienced strength and hope, right? I have my lane, and all of us, when we come together, we're fantastic because we are the complete package. There's nothing that we don't do. So I appreciate, where you're coming from and what you do. And what do we do going forward? What is the next year like? What does the next year look like if we maintain the path that we're on and we have the group of streamers that we have that are so successful, so brilliant, and doing this all for free? And now we're coming up almost like a game, like like opposition, where the people that own this industry, that are paid to do this, they actually would like in now. And so now you have like this merge potentially where like you don't know to trust anybody. Do we need them? The answer is no, we don't. But they obviously have an audience. They can grow us faster, right? So there's like, there's an argument to be made either way. So what does the next year look like in your mind? What do you foresee?
I think we're going to see a lot of fractures community-wise in the next year, because with the launch of Pulse, people are going to have projects that they're going to projects that they're like, oh, this is cool, and we should advocate for this building on the Pulse chain network, because we're no longer one thing. Okay. Not only are we going to have fractures where we see people who are like all P hex and all E hex and all, and all hex, like, we're going to see where some people are going to advocate for things that are built on top of other, of Pulse. And some of those things are not going to survive. And so like the question is going to become like, do we hold responsible the people who said, hey, maybe this is a good idea to invest in, or do we hold ourselves responsible for our own investment? And what's going to happen? I don't know. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of infighting. I do. I think that we're coming up to this like really critical juncture, and the most important thing that we can do moving forward, whether we take a look back or not, is to realize that you and you alone are responsible for your money.
Absolutely. I know there's potential to be conflicted, right? We were, some of us were traders before we got here. I had a very limited experience in trading, but nonetheless, traded a few $100,000 in the stock market before I came on board with Hex. I fancy myself an intermediate, right? And I was very happy to find the community and get a hold of this idea of paying myself in the future, locking up my funds. It created delayed gratification, and I became healthier. I really like that mindset, right? Like I was, full blown Hexican. I am full blown Hexican. Richard throws a curve.
Full-blown Hexican.
Yes.
Full-blown Hexican. I don't know. Like, how much more I can say?
Yeah. I know. I agree. 100% you are. Yes. I totally agree. I don't mean to disqualify you. I just am saying that Richard threw a curveball at me, because now I have to entertain some of the things I thought. And so to Gold Key's question, we have a big opportunity here, especially people who work in this industry, right? You have great connections, Nerd Girl. You can make things happen. You can put the two people in the same room that belong together and make something happen. And the community can benefit off of that. So to Gold Key's question, I know you just touched on it briefly, but what can we do as a community going forward to welcome people? Because Pulse Chain is not going to be just Hex, and it's important that Pulse succeeds. So how do we do that, given we are from the mindset of inclusive? We're inclusive if you're a Hexican, and now we sort of have to be inclusive no matter who you are.
I mean, so some of this has to do with recovering from trauma. I mentioned an article, the trauma of being suppressed and isolated into our own, exclusive group, right? So I think that I mentioned an article that I wrote the last time that I came on your stream, and the article was specifically about the Bitcoin Cash community needing to recover from the trauma of the hard fork with Bitcoin Core and the hard fork with Bitcoin SV. So I believe that it applies very much again here and with us, and what we need to do to evolve and engage with other communities, from Richard Hurt's son, is to heal.
Okay. So I'm reading the comments in the chats. For people I have a lot of respect for. Sometimes it's difficult when I am friends with two people and I have very much respect for both of them, and they have a difference of opinion, right? I don't know. I guess what I'm addressing is Toby Wan, right? I'll just say it. I have a great amount of respect for Toby. I met him in person in Vegas. He's a great guy. There's just no doubt about it. When you meet somebody, he says this feels really off to me. I typically see Nerd Girl's perspective, but it seems like it's another angle to it. Is it malicious?
Of course you feel like that. You feel like you're under attack. It's something that I've already addressed during this stream. People who are potentially exposed to something that could be negative are going to disagree and say, no, there's no way that I could, that could be the case. Like I've already addressed that during this stream. And then I saw somebody else say something like, I agree, too many negative connotations. I'm not saying anything negative. We're having a freaking discourse. Like, are we not allowed to have a discourse? I mean, if we're not, then honestly, like if you have a problem with the fact that I'm always going to question things, then you should not follow me, because I am always going to question everything. If you see me blindly accept something, then I've been inhabited by a foreign species and am no longer myself. Do I have malicious intent? No. We're like, what malicious intent would I possibly have? We have something. Yeah, I've been secretly planning for the last year. No, I have no malicious intent, like whatsoever. We are coming up to a major fork in the road. There is going to be controversy in the community. And if we're aware of the potential for what can happen, then we can stay together.
Absolutely.
What I want is for there to be no further division. What I want is for another excommunication event to never happen, because it hurt me when it did.
And what can you describe that to me then? What did you go through? What exactly were some of the emotions? How did you get out of it? How long did it last?
It's really just like, just an online friendship with someone, but it brought up all of the feelings that I had of losing all of my friendships with people from the tribe of Bitcoin maximalism, and from the tribe of Ethereum maximalism, and from the general crypto vibe that Hex, it sucks or whatever.
When you publicly bash, this is Hex Famous, bash a community you've been a part of and FUD it into oblivion, to where the weak minds follow you into trash and get wrecked, that's a fatal mistake and you should never be forgiven for. I totally disagree, right? I get what you're saying. And in this space, this is very touchy. I tend to believe exactly what you're saying to start, and then I started to have to think about putting myself in someone's shoes. If we're talking about GT in particular, and NerdGrl, who was there for the whole thing, can appreciate his perspective, and I can also appreciate his arguments at the time. I can also sense that when you go against the grain, watch out, and so like that's what I'm learning here is I would like to learn delicately how to let someone who appears to be a furu, right, who appears to have bash us, who appears to have fudded us, I'd like to figure out how to help that person still, because more important than money, right, is helping others. And who needs help? The guy that really needs the help is the guy that hurt everybody around him. The guy that barely hurts anybody, how much help does he need? Right? So the guy that hurt our whole community, he's living out in the woods all by himself. I mean, I shouldn't speculate on his personal life. I have no idea anything about him, but I am intrigued because I've made mistakes. Thank God for people allowing me a second chance. This is totally not up to me, and everybody makes their own decisions. And like Nicole said, that's what it's about. It's not about influencing other people. So I appreciate everyone's perspective. I knew this was going to be controversial. There's other people saying this isn't controversial at all. But I knew we were going to rattle some chains because I like that sort of content. I want to dissect this. And so I appreciate everybody's opinion. So keep typing in the chat. If you don't mind, NerdGrl, we'll keep having this discussion. If anybody has some opposing views.
People are like seeming to believe that I'm trying to say that we should let GT or other, other excommunicated members back in. I'm not. I'm just saying, people should be free to have conversations with whoever they want.
Right.
And friendships with whoever they want. And I feel that way very strongly because I have experienced excommunication from a cult of cryptocurrency and lost all of my friends, and it hurt me.
And so what is that like today? You have a new set of friends, but what is your old friends, your emotions attached to that? Have you built any bridges with any of them? Have they changed their tune? Is it all the same?
No, I mean, so there are people who like who never quit talking to me, you know? There are people who were just like, forget it, you know, like, and like, I mean, I don't care, you know? And then there are people who have, you know, come around, and there are people who will never speak to me again. And I mean, like, yeah, I have a new community of friends and I'm really grateful. Like, I love all of you. I'm so grateful. I'm so appreciative of everyone, you know, in this community. I mean, that's great, but that doesn't change that I miss some of my old friends. I can't get a conference ticket to ETHCC4 in Paris next week because I'm part of the Hex and Pulse community. And so that hurts me professionally. And, you know, I would have been able to like snap my fingers and get a conference ticket a year ago with far less followers.
Thank you for bringing that up, because that was the point I was hoping to illustrate, was that you are in fact experiencing this right now as a member of our community. So there are people out there who used to have quote unquote love for you, who chose to have they're not there for you anymore, right? And you're experiencing this right now, and that's just what the show is all about. There's no like answer to anything. We're not gonna, you know, GT is not going to show up on the show. I don't have any plans for the future. I know NrdGrl, I'm 99% sure you don't either with him.
Nope.
So this isn't like we're not building up to something here. It's just intriguing to me. Bitfinesse is here. Bitfinesse is the one that sent me the video to watch that Discourse Syndicate with GT. And, you know, Hexmac is asking, why are we even talking about this, right? The reason is because it's current news, right? Like the Hexicans are fighting with Coach K. They're Eric Wall, I believe is his last name, right? Wall is somebody NrdGrl's working with potentially to bring on stream. He was somebody that fudded Hex early on, or maybe he was controlled opposition. Because if you look at the old videos, he likes to really like Richard. And then he's like, you know, it's who knows, right? I like to entertain everything for the fact of just talking about Hex, about the drama that's happened. It's interesting, right? And I don't mean to put this out there to FUD anybody's bag. I just want to clarify what the point is. This is discourse, right? The purpose of us doing this is to talk, to play devil's advocate, because a lot of times we're wrong, right? And a lot of times it takes somebody like
and
NrdGrl.
Other people are wrong, and other people can be wrong, and no. And someone's like, so Toby's saying like, I can see she was hurt by, you know, by his excommunication, and so she's saying we should forgive and forget, even though we wrecked plebs. And that's 100% not what I'm saying. It's 100% not what I'm saying. Like, you're vastly misinterpreting what I've said.
1 second. Thank you. Well, put the YouTube audio back on. So it is, we're not putting negativity out there to see negativity follow through, right? This is not so 2000 Hexander. This is so this weekend, right? So like that's why I'm a little aggravated and perturbed, because I saw something that, you know, rocked me to my core. I wanted to respond. Instead, I chose to use my higher level thinking, backed out of it. It has nothing to do with me anyways. And so here we are today. You know, we want to talk about the potential downfalls, the pitfalls, because that's what discourse is, right? If we came on and only sold the good side and didn't talk about the potential pitfalls, that wouldn't be doing a service to the community. And why Hex is different is because we do have these tough discussions, and we have them in an open forum where people can watch them later, and people can contact NrdGrl or contact me, and we can have a one-on-one discussion. I mean, that's what makes this special. So I apologize to anyone that's exhausted by the topic of people that cause controversy. To me, this is great. You know, I enjoy having a controversial discussion, and like NrdGrl has said numerous times, it's up to everybody to make your own decisions financially, of course. And then especially when it comes to emotions and who you let in your inner circle. So
Hexmac just said you can forgive someone and never want anything to do with them again. I don't understand the need to bring someone back into a community they chose to leave. Nobody's saying we should. Nobody's saying we should. 0 people on this stream are saying that we should. Here's a question for you guys, though. do you think that I should be let back into the Bitcoin community? I mean, I guess here's the thing. I didn't wreck anyone, right? Only the people who listened to me made money. But that's just because I made it, just because of freaking luck, honestly.
So
that's not even the argument. That's not like why I'm saying that, like, I should, that like I'm not arguing that people should let him back in or trust him or trust anyone or let anyone back in. But at the same time, I do think that we need to examine stuff like, would you like for me to be allowed to talk to Bitcoiners again? I mean, I'm pretty effective at convincing them that their maximalist perspective is incorrect. So
yeah, and we are doing this for the point of education, right? Like for all of us, for myself, I don't have a lot of these answers, and I want to hear some of these things. We have these discussion behind closed doors. Also, I did not mean to make GT the focus of this. When my question regarding some of the men and women that I look up to in this space not being so willing to allow other influencers, I did not mean GT. So I apologize that I went there with that, because that was kind of two things coming into one. What I'm talking about is successful YouTube influencers who have an audience, who are actively participating in marketing to them. I see the teamwork that could happen, and I'm intrigued by it. I also am from the school of thought that, like, you guys made fun of us this whole time, and now here we come blowing up the middle, and now you want to be friends? Like, get out of here. So I'm intrigued. That's all. I'm excited by this space. There's always something going on, and that we're getting the attention of the influencers, right? Pulse Chain's happening. Richard's doing a little media tour right now, right? Like if I'm a publicist or business manager, Richard's going out on a media tour. What does that mean? That means Pulse Chain Sacrifice is happening very soon, or he wouldn't be doing this right now. So we're getting to this point where everybody's going to go into this event, which has potential. And if we don't mind,
Evans, I love you.
Hi, Dan, how's it going? We have a half hour left, so if we could kind of just bring it more into Hex, Pulse, and the Sacrifice, certainly still touch on things, but we have this event coming up, and it's going to be very volatile. We're going to see, in my opinion, no financial advice. You're going to see a huge S curve that's going to be parabolic at the end, right? And so that it can create a lot of degen moments, a lot of this is betting, this is trading, right? Even if you DCA in, there's no good way to not call it betting, right? Unless you're able to go in every minute of every period. You're just not going to be able to do that. So a lot of us are going to what I want to make sure is that we discuss the responsible way to go about things. And I know that from working with Maddie Allen for a little while, Maddie made a point to make sure we write down our plan, put it pen to paper and write it down, right? And for the exercise of using the different parts of your body, your mind, right? You're going to write it down. You get it in your long-term thinking, you put it away. That way, when something like Pulse comes out, we're not going to deviate from that. So I'm not deviating from my original plan. I am not sacrificing. I'm not emergency end staking. I'm not doing anything with my allocated amount of Hex that I've used to build the ladder that's going to provide perpetual passive income for the rest of my life. And that starts at the end of this year for me, right? So I am so grateful and thankful for that. I am, however, acquiring liquid Hex with every opportunity that I get, right? And I know I'm going to have a big bag of liquid Hex, and this opportunity that's going to be extremely volatile is going to come. So I haven't had this discussion with you, Nicole, very limited if we discussed the Pulse Chain Sacrifice. So I was just curious, do you have a strategy going in that you'd be willing to share? We basically have the next half hour to talk about anything we want, and I'd like to kind of keep it centered around sacrifice.
Yeah, so I've acquired more Hex than I intended to for the sacrifice, like just because I live pretty frugally despite my tiaras and jewelry. And so I have more than, like, I was intending to acquire a bunch of liquid Hex for the sacrifice, and I've accumulated more than I had anticipated. And also its price has appreciated more than I had anticipated. And so my strategy has changed, but only slightly. and to the point where my plan is to sacrifice on day one, and then sacrifice half of what I've accumulated for the sacrifice on day one, and then to sacrifice the remaining half. Not sacrifice, I guess if there's a substantial drop before the end of the sacrifice period, to sacrifice then. And if not, to hold that potentially for the event of a price drop after the launch.
Wow. Thank you. I didn't know you'd get so detailed with it, so I appreciate that. None of this obviously is financial advice, right? What I'm doing, I'm glad to have this conversation. Because I like to play devil's advocate a lot, right? What I'm good at is being critical, right, to a fault perhaps. But what I like to hear is different people's perspectives, and then I'd like to say what I'm concerned with, if you don't mind. So my original plan was very much exactly what you just said. As someone who's guiding my family and friends through this, if I'm a whale, right? I touched a little bit on this the other day with RG last week. There's a few whales in the system. If I'm a whale, not only am I going to buy up the entirety of the market supply of Hex in the very last minute, and also be able to sacrifice that. So I need to do it at the last moment where I can buy it and then send it to the sacrifice address. So let's say I spend $100 million to do so. I buy up the entirety of the liquid supply. You're not going to know to sell your Hex because you're not going to be able to do it because you don't have a limit order set in for this to happen. You're not going to be able to get to your computer, open up your ledger, MetaMask. You're not going to be able to beat this. So it's going to happen with bots or some sort of system. So the price is going to be driven all the way up. A counter, what I believe is also going to happen is in the first. So here's why, the reason I'm saying all this. I believe everybody should be DCAing in as responsibly as possible that's in my family. So anyone that's in my family, that's what we're doing. The reason we're not throwing the whole chunk at the first little bit like we were is because if I'm that whale that's going to buy up the supply at the end, I'm also the whale who is going to come in and I'm going to rock bottom the price in that first half hour. So at the 15-minute mark of when it opens, I'm going to rock bottom the price. I am going to drive the price all the way down because there's so many people that just came in to get that first half hour that now you're going to be diluted, right? And so now you're going to have that S curve, right? It's going to go down and it's going to come up. And so that's what I believe is going to happen. So I'm going to get into that period for sure in case I'm wrong. I'm also going to get into the period at the end, and I'm going to get in every period in between and hold a little back. I haven't thought a lot about whale games, Nicole. So if you have more experience with this or you just want to maybe respond to what I said, if you haven't thought about anything like that before.
No, I don't want to have it consume my life for the entirety of the sacrifice phase.
Yep. So you got to make a balance, right? So you don't want to be living at the computer every moment, trading, right? You don't want to be trading.
Right.
Yeah. So I love, to hear everybody's perspective on what they're doing. I believe the sacrifice phase is getting pretty close. I don't think that there's a wrong way you can go about this. So while someone thought I was fudding everybody's bags.
Mom shows you how much that wasn't an Oprah Winfrey quote. It was a Maya Angelou.
So sorry, Toby. I don't know which.
Shows you how much you know.
What did Toby say?
He said, if someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Oprah.
Good. It's very much more powerful as a Maya Angelou quote. So next time, Toby. If we want to talk about some comments, jump around, do whatever. I want to make sure that people get on stream and have the discussion about what's possible, right? Because I don't hear anyone coming on and having the real discussion about this is what the whales may do. This is where you could be diluted, right? I want to start hearing that. And I just want to make sure that every time I get on stream until the sacrifice phase is over, that I at least express a responsible way that I think is to go into this. And so really that's all. It's funny because I want to keep talking about only the cult and the controversy. There's a lot of comments coming in, so we could certainly go back to that. I just feel funny that I said to everyone we would talk about sacrifice phase to end. So it seems like there's a lot more comments coming in about more what we were talking about. So we could just jump around, Nicole. If you see anything that you want to talk about, go ahead. Any comments you want me to throw up?
No, I mean, so I don't know.
Cool.
I mean, my strategy is just to also I sacrificed in advance. So that's another strategy that, maybe some people should think about, particularly if you're interested in having something to write off your taxable gains.
Cool. Toby's just a ball buster too, just like we are. So
yeah,
just throwing his comment up there. Toby actually brought up some cool points to me when I was in Las Vegas regarding that.
Mm-hmm.
Setting up some LLCs for your business, perhaps, doing it through your 401k, your Roth IRA, I believe, if not the normal IRA. I forget which one it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, these are real discussions that we can have. And John Wick, Toby Wanixobi, they're brilliant guys to hear their perspective on it, to realize how much money we can save. If you're going to be cashing out of Hex, if you're going to take a significant amount out this year, you could sacrifice. I'm sure you probably already know this, but in case you don't, you could sacrifice to the Sends address, right? You get a 75% credit. It's a tax. What's the word? Tax.
It's a tax deduction.
Tax deduction. Thank you. And so you will be able to offset the mad gains that you made this year in Hex. I never thought about anything like that, right? So it's a really cool way for you to maybe game the system a little more than you've already have and save on some taxes. So just want to give a shout out to Toby.
That you would be at least somewhat protected from the whale games that are certain to be played.
Yes, because the whales are going to play their games and we are going to get diluted from the whales. There's no doubt about it. But it's just like in Hex. It doesn't matter. Give me 1 second. It doesn't matter what they do because we're all getting in and we all have the same amount, whatever they do. So it's not like the whales are going to get in and then drive the price down. That would be a ridiculous thing for somebody to do. So we're going to, I keep losing my concentration. I apologize. You want to jump in? I forget what I'm saying. It's hard.
I don't know what you're saying.
Thanks for helping out. Sorry. You guys got to be faster on the trolls here. That's throwing out my attention. Well, what was I saying? Let me think about that for a second.
Does NerdGrl agree that it's very hard not to be a Hex maxi simply because it's the only crypto that makes any sense? I agree that it's hard not to be a Hex maxi because it's the only crypto that consistently makes money. But I do think that there are other things that make sense. So,
big question. I have to take this moment. I'm sure you've gotten it a lot. I've never been the focus. I'm half the focus on it of the troll comments before. I'm usually an admin and getting rid of them, and I've seen everybody get attacked in every way. So shout out to the troll for my first time. Thank you. I feel like I made it. You wrote me into the bot, so thank you. And everybody that's modding, thank you, because it does get distracting. Like if you're trying to have obviously a conversation and some comments like that pop up, I do appreciate everybody helping out. So thank you. Yeah, if you got we got about 18 minutes until Discourse starts. So if you got any questions about anything, please ask. If we didn't answer anything and you asked before, now would be a great time to copy and paste it back in if you got it, or just re-ask it. Talking about whales in their game, your Hexcellence says. So, with us all having essentially whatever's left, like the whales are going to play their games. Thank you, your Hexcellence. We're going to have whatever's left. And it's just like in Hex with the OA having a large amount. It doesn't matter that they have a large amount. It's actually a feature, not a bug. So the whales are going to play their game. We're going to get diluted to the amount. It really, truly doesn't matter because it's all an opportunity. And the whales aren't going in to sink the system. They're the ones that are going to hold it up. They're very important. So I say this, that the whales are going to come in and buy up the entirety of the supply. And I'll throw out an astronomical number like $1 to $10 Hex for a matter of a minute as it plummets back down at the last point of the sacrifice phase. And I'm not saying that to scare everybody and to think you shouldn't be sacrificing. You'd be, in my opinion, everybody that I know that's in crypto is getting into the sacrifice and we're doing it responsibly. It's just that this is potential to what can happen. So what if you were planning on only doing the first two things, the first and the last, and they mess with it the way that they did, or maybe an opposite way, or something I haven't thought of yet, So it's just, I want to make sure that every chance we have the discussion, what everybody's doing. That's what's interesting to me. Like someone who's made it in this space, you're financially secure. You have a job in crypto. You have an opportunity like Pulse Chain. This is exciting. We're gonna throw a lot of money at it, and I'm relieved in a sense to see that you are taking a more balanced approach and really don't want to get so wrapped up in it, because you don't want to spend the time mentally to do that.
No, like I have a job, it pays me, I can afford to,
Yeah. And there's and like I said, there's no losing in this circumstance. It's just we're all going to look back and see people made better decisions than others because they gambled, not better decisions. They got lucky. That's all it's going to be. I think Wales said it today or yesterday, but that's all it is. Like we're going to look back, or maybe it was Gary. We're all going to look back and we're going to be like, wow, you see what that guy did? That guy just got lucky. You know what I mean? Because somebody is going to get lucky, but the responsible way, DC into every period, watch out for that first moment and watch out for the last moment. And I'm hoping Richard hears me, right, when I say this, because it's so like scathing to me, even though it doesn't matter because we're all going to end up with something great. But this really is like a weak point in what I've heard so far, is that you can drive it down so much in the beginning and drive it up so much in the end. I would love some sort of bonding curve for how much things can be driven up and be driven down, given the price. Like maybe you have a wedge in the middle that in the beginning, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but I'm pointing out a flaw potentially, and Balaji, in my mind, I always call you Bali J. Maybe you used to have that name. Joe, you're talking about the volatility of the price of EHEX during sacrifice. I am. I'm saying that the price of EHEX is going to be an S-curve throughout the sacrifice phase that's going to be a parabolic up at the end. And I believe that we're going to see such an increase in the price of HEX that unless they put, let's say, a 10% marker every day for your buy-in price to be reduced by 10% every day, I fully expect the HEX price to outpace that. So with all that said, if I'm a whale and I'm going to win this game, and to reiterate what I said the other night, I'm going to wait until the last, let's say, 5 minutes, because it's the 15 minutes before and the 15 minutes after. So in the last 5 minutes of the sacrifice phase, there is no 15 minutes after. So it's only the last time. 1 second. It's only the last time of the sacrifice phase that you can do that. So you could potentially, I don't know, what does it cost to buy up the majority of the supply on Uniswap? Can you do it for $100 million? Pretty much, right? You drive the price through the roof. You have little to no sell pressure, and you get your money's worth, right? You dilute the market at the end. So I believe that's going to happen. I believe that the whales are going to play games with each other too, though. One whale has to know that the other whale is going to do that, So there's the potential that none of that happens, and there is no big buy at the end, and sacrifice phase comes and there's a massive dump. That is totally a possibility, and one that I am planning for. And I'm planning for it equally as I am for this to blow up like crazy in the sense of making $10 HEX. So I think
someone's asking an important question. How long after the sacrifice will the snapshot take place for all the ERC20s? I don't think that we know the answer to that yet. No,
we don't. Not that I'm aware of. And so these nuances are going to be very important. We've all been waiting for months, right? And like discussing what we're going to do because we think these are the parameters of it. But make any one little change to some of these parameters and you got to come up with a whole new plan. And that's a good point. How long after the sacrifice will it take place, the snapshot? Because you can do things in that meantime, right, to position yourself better. Also, be prepared for a way to get into Pulse Chain, right? Is there going to be a bridge on the way out immediately? I've heard no. I heard there's going to be a short period of time where there's no bridge on the way out. You're going to need a bridge on the way in, though, if there's going to be an opportunity for you to take advantage of a dump that happens on that side. So if you're not already acquiring Pulse in the sacrifice phase. You might want to think about maybe some potential stables. There's people talking about the Sens Foundation right now. There's really so many different ways you can go about this. That's what makes it fun. You know, you got I wonder, not to give the troll too much attention, but like, is it just one troll that like just goes to Discourse Syndicate and does this with your time? Because you're really not even funny. Like us trolls that are really in the chat, like we're actually funny. You could learn from us, and then when you go and make something, like have it be funny. Like don't, you know what I mean? It's the same like childish 13-year-old stuff. Like it gets old. Like we don't even read it anymore, and it's I don't know. I mean, dude, just DM me and I'll give you some pointers on like how to actually add value to the stream without just being a child.
I am unaffected by the comments that have been made during this stream. So like, I mean, there have been trolls who have gotten me like good, and this is like just dumb.
So there's something pretty cool that could happen with this, right? You could drive the price of Hex up so high, Nerd Girl, that not only do we become the #1 market cap coin, but Pulse becomes the number 2. I'm sorry, Pulse Hex becomes the number 2, and then Pulse becomes the number 3, right? So I don't know what it would take for economic input, but you're going to have a fixed amount of supply of the Pulse when it comes out. If you buy up the entirety of the market supply of E-Hex in the last moments and you sacrifice it for P-Hex, you are now putting such a massive economic energy into that system that once that first sale happens of Pulse, everything on now the Pulse chain will have price. If you drive the price up the way I'm thinking and you have the snapshot taken immediately as the sacrifice ends and then we go live in the next moment, I believe that there's the potential that you could see at the end of this sacrifice phase Richard Hart, the founder of the top 3 coins in all of crypto, right? Because we can exploit the market cap, because it's really just bullshit, right? It doesn't mean a thing. It's just the supply times the last sale price. So while everybody's thinking wait till Hex, you know, what's the word? The flipping happens. Wait till ETH does BTC. Wait till Hex does ETH. Well, wait till all 3 do the top 3. You know, so I would love to hear if that's not the case. If anyone has thought this through a little further and thinks that's not a possibility. Let's get some more controversial comments, Nerd Girl. Here, what do we got? Anything? What don't you guys like about stuff? So we can get in there with you. I appreciate everyone sticking it out too. You know, I was thinking after we were talking about certain things that people might be leaving the chat. So we got 111 right now. We've had over 100 for quite a while. I appreciate everybody being here. It's really exciting for me to be on stream with you, Nicole. I'd like to, you know, use a little bit of time to praise you if you don't mind. Go ahead.
I have a question for you, actually.
Okay.
So this was something that I just like I've been wondering about. So I don't know if your like opinion of this has changed. So because you work for the agency that I work for. So my question is, after working with me in a professional capacity, has your opinion on whether gender bias in the workplace is real or not changed?
It's very real, of course. I'm guilty of it myself, and a lot of times I feel guilty with the interaction that just you and I have had, never mind other people with you. I do see it, and not necessarily only at LDA, but everywhere. Even right now tonight when we had this stream, right? Like, I think your persona throws people off, right? Because you have a gentle, more delicate approach. And I don't expect you to ask the kind of deep, hard questions that you ask, and you get a lot of good responses out of people. There is extreme gender bias, and I am so ashamed that I'm a father of 2 young girls. I thought I'm not like that. In fact, I was telling you in Vegas, like, you know, wow, some of these guys are real dicks, you know, and like I apologize for them They just don't get it. Like, it's just being guys. And then I turn around and I do like the same thing. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's embarrassing. You know, first of all, hopefully it's not that big of a deal, but it's something that I do think about. And I feel for you how you must feel. It must be. That's why I'm inspired by you, Nerd Girl. You know, you take a lot of shit and you keep going and you keep rolling with it, and you seem not to let it affect you, which is amazing. Because you see how I get when somebody writes a troll chat, like I'm like a squirrel, you know. So it's really cool that you're able to maintain, and not only that, but just my real true opinion of you. There's not many leaders for me in the Hex community that could actually like lead the whole Hex community, right? And Hex is not looking for that, right? But there's people like yourself and RG and Hexologists, like you're a cut above the rest. And maybe everyone doesn't know that, but I work with you. I read your writing. I see how fast you are. I see your creativity. I see how other people overall have very much a great deal of respect for you. But then when we have some sort of discourse and you're the one with the difference of opinion, you're going to be the first person to get dismissed. There's no doubt about it. And that is certainly the gender bias that's happening. You know, so I wanted to just, make sure I give you a shout out. And I'm kind of glad you asked me that question, because I did want to praise you. And that was in the capacity that I wanted to do it in. For anyone who doesn't know, Nicole and I are both cutthroats, RG's Cutthroats conglomerate, and Nicole and I have known each other for almost a year now, and have a great deal of respect for one another personally and professionally. And Nerd Girl offered to help me out with a job at one point, and it was over my head, right? It was a great opportunity, and I was so excited to have an opportunity in the space, but I had to reluctantly pass on it because it was just, I didn't want to waste anyone's time. And then you followed up with another opportunity, and Rock from Lunar Digital Assets was gracious enough to bring me on. And I have an internship there now, and it's a paid internship, and I'm learning a tremendous amount. The team is outstanding. I mean, regardless of gender bias, here comes like regardless of what you go through, it's awesome. It's awesome. A great team.
Here's the thing, like, gender bias is real, but it's not as bad when you learn how to use it. Like, I mean, because, like, there are times when, like, people don't listen to me, even though I've proven that they should listen to me, because they should have listened the last 3 times that I told them what to do, and they still don't. But at the same time, like, I use it to my advantage, because, like, all of this is to manipulate you, like, so gender bias is real, and there's a way to use it both to your advantage.
Sorry to cut you off. Marcavelli, I'm a married man. I'm also someone that you would never talk to like that in person. So you should watch yourself, because we will see each other one day, right? It's not a threat, right? I'm not a threatening guy, but I am not simping for Nicole, right? I have nothing but love and respect for Nicole. She's helped me out tremendously. And it's people like you that bring really little to no value to the community that I want to see me here say how much I praise Nicole, right? So you want to say anything to me, Marcavelli? We're going to see each other. We got 15 years. 15 years, brother. So not simping hard, dude. Happily married. Just spent a week in Vegas with Nicole, right? So not simping hard. Very good friends. Wouldn't expect you to say that either. So you didn't say it. You muted it. You wrote it, and then you muted it. So I am a little touchy, right? And my first response is to be a little combative, especially since this is a great opportunity, right? And I really don't want to end this on a negative note. Another guy said it. I apologize, Marcavelli, because now you can see how you're not supposed to react when you're me, right? Emotionally, because what I tend to do is just get extremely aggravated. I don't really follow the whole thing, what's happening right now. We only got 2 minutes. Marcavelli had it in his. That was from Marcavelli, not Marcavelli. I don't get it. Oh, I apologize, Marcavelli. All right. So I am a dick, right? And I apologize. I thought you were being combative, and I'm a total asshole. And when I make mistakes, so I apologize.
Everyone makes mistakes.
I'm the the king of being an asshole, and so everybody just witnessed it. I apologize. At the same time, you know, just in case my wife is watching, right, to have an appropriate comment like that, like I don't know really how to respond to these things socially, so it's aggravating, right? So I apologize, Marcavelli. Can we talk about Pulse or something else? Yeah, sure.
We can't really talk about Pulse, guys, because we
got
off.
1 minute.
We've got 1 minute. So let's just like, you know, this has been a great stream. Thanks so much for having me on, Joe. Everyone who is watching, come watch my show on Wednesday, please. And stay tuned for RG3 right after this.
Thank you, guys. Join me next week. So my guest is, I want to confirm and make sure somebody is somebody that was in the Hexagon community in Las Vegas, an OG Hexagon, very great guy. I just want to confirm that he'll be on before I announce it. So thank you everybody for a great show. Nicole, thank you so much for coming on. We'll do this all again next week, and Nerd Girl has a show coming up on Wednesday. Do you have a guest that you'd like to announce?
I can't remember who it is, so I'm going to have to check.
Cool.
I do have a guest. I don't remember who.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Marcavelli, last time. I love you, brother. I am working on that, so thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Nicole, thank you. Everybody have a good night. Discourse Syndicate's about to start.